The passage supplies information to suggest that the religious and political groups mentioned and Whatley might have agreed that a novel. Now, the groups that are mentioned here are referenced in the first paragraph. The critic Whatley is mentioned in the third paragraph. We see that there is one connecting thread. This statement here says certain religious and political groups felt novels had the power to make so-called immoral characters so interesting that young readers would identify them. So we see here that novels had the power to make so-called immoral characters interesting, so interesting that young readers would identify with them or try to emulate them, or in a simplification, novels had the power to influence moral choices or moral values. This is also common in the argument that Whatley makes. The critic Whatley did not use the word realism either, but he expressed agreement with Scott's evaluation. Scott's evaluation is presented in the second paragraph, and went on to suggest the possibilities for moral instruction in what we have called Austen's realistic method. Her characters, wrote Whatley, are persuasive agents for moral truth since they are ordinary persons, so clearly evoke that we feel an interest in their fates as if they were our own. Moral instruction, explained Whatley, is more likely to be effective when conveyed through recognizably human and interesting characters than when imparted by a sermonizing narrator. Whatley especially praised Austen's ability to create characters who would mingle goodness and villainy, weakness and virtue. As in life, they are always mingled. So we find that Whatley also believed that novels, especially Austen's novels, had the power to be able to influence the moral choices or moral values of their readers. Now, let's look at the options. A says, has little practical use. This is what these groups believe in. We see that here. These groups also considered novels to be of little practical use, but such a statement has not been made in the context of Whatley. So it is unlikely that Whatley would agree with this. A is not a valid choice. Option B says, has the ability to influence the moral values of his readers, exactly what we needed. The ability to influence moral values that we have already qualified. We've seen the reference in both the paragraphs. So B is a valid choice. Option C tells us, is of most interest to readers when representing ordinary human characters. This comes close because Whatley does talk about the importance of human characters, went on to suggest the possibility of for moral instruction in what we have called Austen's realistic method. Her characters, wrote Whatley, are persuasive agents for moral truths since they are ordinary persons. Moral instruction is more likely to be effective when conveyed through recognizably human and interesting characters than when imparted by a sermonizing narrator. But of most interest to readers when representing ordinary human characters, that is not necessarily given here, because it's not interest that we are talking about. We are talking about moral values and influence on morality. And also, this is an argument that is not given in the context of the religious and political groups mentioned here. They did not think that there was anything of interest to novels because they considered novels to be of little practical use. So this is also partial. Option C can be eliminated. Option D says, should not be read by young readers. Now, this again might be something that the religious and political groups agree with, but Whatley was not likely to agree with this. Whatley does speak positively of at least Austen and her novels and her method of writing literature. So it's unlikely that Whatley would agree with this. So D is incorrect. We can eliminate it. The correct answer is option B.